Hi, this is Matt Baker. Recently, I did a pair of videos on the words Israel and Palestine, and how each of these words can mean different things depending on the context. However, two words that I didn't go into much detail on, even though they obviously came up, were Zionism and Anti-Zionism. So I figured a third video was needed in order to clear a few things up. First off, in the Israel video, I made it seem as if anti-Zionism was simply being critical of the actions of the current Israeli government. But this is actually not the case because, as several people pointed out in the comments, many Zionists also oppose the actions of the current Israeli government. In other words, I didn't really get to the heart of the difference between Zionists and anti-Zionists. So that is what I'm going to do right now. Let me start by sharing a very basic definition of Zionism. At its core, Zionism is simply support for the continued existence of Israel as a Jewish state. So regardless of what you think about what is happening in Gaza, and regardless of whether or not you think Palestinians deserve their own state, if you think Israel should continue to exist as it does right now, meaning as a country with a uniquely Jewish identity, then you are a Zionist. Now, within this broad definition, Zionism can obviously take a multitude of different forms. Let me describe at least two, starting with the most extreme version. There are some Zionists who are undeniably racist and Islamophobic towards Palestinians, who have participated in genocidal war crimes against them, and who have supported illegal settlements in Palestinian areas. This brand of Zionism would like to see Gaza and the West Bank cleared of all Arabs so that Israel could look like this. However, there are also other Zionists, often called liberal Zionists, who strongly oppose the war on Gaza and who even acknowledge that a genocide has occurred there. These Zionists want Palestinians to have freedom, safety, and peace, but see some sort of a two-state solution as the best way forward. Because a two-state solution would involve the continued existence of Israel as a Jewish state, alongside a new, fully independent Palestinian state, anyone who favors a two-state solution, even if they are Palestinian, is, by definition, a Zionist. Okay, let's now take a look at anti-Zionism, starting with its most extreme form. There are some anti-Zionists who are undeniably anti-Semitic, hating both the Jewish people as a whole as well as the State of Israel. They tend to use the same tropes against Israel that have been used against Jews for centuries, and would like to see the Middle East completely cleared of all Jews, so that Palestine would look like this. However, there are also other anti-Zionists, including anti-Zionist Jews, who simply see Zionism as a bad idea because it's deeply rooted in 19th century ideas about nationalism, which are now considered outdated. This type of anti-Zionism acknowledges that the Zionist project, even if its aims were good, necessitated the expulsion of Palestinians and continues to necessitate their occupation and denial of rights, which is not good. But here's the part that I really want to highlight. These anti-Zionists don't want to make things right by kicking out all of the Israeli Jews. No, they want the Israeli Jews to continue to live safely where they do right now, with all their rights and freedoms. The only difference is that they want the Palestinians to also share in those same rights and freedoms. And in order for that to happen, they see a one-state solution as the best way forward, a state that would be equally Jewish and Arab. So, because this sort of one-state solution would involve a state that wouldn't be explicitly just Jewish, anyone who favors a one-state solution like this is, by definition, an anti-Zionist. So I still stand by my earlier statement that anti-Zionism doesn't have to be anti-Semitic, just like Zionism doesn't have to be anti-Palestinian. In my experience, there are folks in both this camp as well as in this camp, who care deeply about both Jews and Arabs and simply want a solution that can be good for everyone. So even though we tend to see things in terms of this entire side against this entire side, I think there's an argument to be made that the two positions in the middle actually have more in common with each other than they do with the extreme versions of themselves, in that the two in the middle both want safety and freedom for everyone. The main disagreement is just over whether a two-state solution would be better or whether a one-state solution would be better. Some people think that a one-state solution would never work and is incredibly naive. Well, there are others who think a two-state solution would never work and is incredibly naive, which is why there are also a lot of people who don't even argue for one or the other. They just want peace and are willing to consider both. The other mistake I made in my first video was that I said Zionists were a subset of Jews. What I was trying to convey was that when Zionism first arose in the late 1800s, not all Jews supported it. In fact, up until the end of World War II, most Jews did not support it. But here's the thing. If we fast forward to today, the vast majority of Zionists are not even Jews at all. They are Christians, mostly American Christians. And this is something that anti-Zionists point out as being problematic. You see, according to a certain brand of evangelical Christianity, the Bible is interpreted as saying that the Jewish people must be returned to their homeland. And until this fully happens, Jesus will not return. So that's less about supporting Jewish interests than it is about supporting their own. And I won't even go into all the money that U.S. weapons manufacturers make off of supporting Zionism. Cogito did a really good video about that, which I'll link to in the description if you want to learn more about it. Instead, I want to end by pointing out that it's not just anti-Zionism that can be anti-Semitic. Zionism can be too. For example, in the early days of Zionism, a lot of Europeans supported it because they didn't want Jews in their own countries. And unfortunately, this line of thinking still exists to this day. There are also many Zionists who look negatively upon the long history of Jews in the diaspora and are embarrassed by it, which is a form of internalized antisemitism. In contrast, many Jewish anti-Zionists argue that Jews have a rich history in the diaspora, one that should be celebrated, and that it's better to fight antisemitism wherever it's found rather than try to avoid it by having a Jewish state. So that was a better look at the terms Zionism and anti-Zionism. If you found this series of videos at all helpful and would like to do something to support those suffering in Gaza, I encourage you to donate to an organization called Connecting Gaza, which is a small grassroots organization run by a friend of mine, which is helping people on the ground in Gaza through personal connections. You can find the link in the description and pinned comment. Thanks for watching.